people weren't as sophisticated as we are now. We very little of what we did was organic, because the only thing you could actually get that was organic was wheat flour. Fair trade wasn't there. Macrobiotic principles are no sugar, whole grains, eat a diet predominant in grains and vegetables, don't eat any processed or factory farmed meat, justice, so make sure that what you're doing hasn't hurt somebody else, yeast avoidance. These are all things that are kind of common now, but they all sounded wacky at the time. We had to make our market, one customer at a time. It was all about education. Now we're in a situation where, I've seen this with, in the natural food business. There was a show a couple of weeks ago at the Excel Center. There were dozens of new companies. There must be 20 companies doing organic chocolate alone. People are coming up with organic tea, organic. The idea of small brands being able to break into markets was unheard of in those days. I think the biggest impacts are manifested in the way we eat today. People started changing the way they ate right then and there. The seeds, we called our restaurant Seed because we were planting a seed of something that would grow. Right? It grew incredibly slowly compared to what we expected. But, we registered the name Yin Yang because we thought that philosophical worldview would predominate, and we owned it and we could put it on our products and that sort of thing. But it did change. We published a magazine called Seed a few years later, and it all continued to build and build, and then the children of those people started influencing their peers. And now we have a situation where people take organic food for granted. They eat whole grains. Brown rice sales are, expanding exponentially. People have discovered all these other things like quinoa and chia seeds, but people's diet, people who actually are conscious of diet, are eating better and better. Even people who aren't are just by default going into Marks and Spencer's or Pret a Manger or places like that and getting food that no longer has hydrogenated fat and all the additives and colorings and pesticide residues that we used to just accept. We got lead out of the air. That was a hippie who sued BP and Shell in the 80s for lead poisoning in his son. All these things we took for granted in the 60s and just started to question. The progress has been, there has been progress. It hasn't been, as I said, quite as impressive as one would have hoped, but it's happened. The whole environmental thing started then. And again, it was people in a heightened state of awareness, looking around and thinking, it shouldn't be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. How did we get this numbness? And, all right, poets like Blake and Shelley wrote about it 150 years ago, but they came from a world where there was still a clearer, cleaner world out there. We were in a world where there wasn't, you'd go into Kensington Gardens and that was as close as you got to nature, unless you went out in the country.